Hello everyone, I'm George from Ireland. This is going my British Poesy channel, and this is by a British poet, James Joyce from Dublin, because of course when he wrote it, Dublin was part of the United Kingdom, and all Irish people are British, even though not British citizens by culture, often by ethnicity, but that's really another point. So I'm going to read Gas from a Burner by Joyce. So Joyce, obviously far better known as a novelist, and only published, a couple of volumes of poems penny each, chamber music. He's a marvelous poet, as I say, not a prolific one, but they might seem simplistic, but they're not. They're not. You can read between the lines. So this one I happen to know he wrote on a train trip across Europe when he's come back from Trieste to Ireland with a view to trying to have Dubliners publish his collection of short stories about his hometown. So remember, this is a time when a lot of people didn't have radiators and switching on gas to heat yourself up or to cook with. Anyway. So here it is, and I'll offer a little bit of an exegesis afterwards. Gas from a Burner by James Joyce. Ladies, gents, you are here assembled to hear why earth and heaven trembled, because of the black and sinister arts of an Irish writer in foreign parts. He sent me a book 10 years ago. I read it 100 times or so, backwards and forwards, and down and up, through both ends of a telescope. I printed it all to the very last word, but by the mercy of the Lord, the darkness of my mind was rent, and I saw the writer's foul intent. But I owe a duty to Ireland. I held her honour in my hand, this lovely land that always sent her writers and artists to banishment, and in a spirit of Irish fun betrayed her own leaders one by one. 'Twas Irish humour, wet and dry, flung quicklime in Parnell's eye. 'Tis Irish brains that save from doom the leaky barge of the Bishop of Rome, for everyone knows the Pope can't belch without the consent of Billy Walsh. O Ireland, my first and only love, where Christ and Caesar are hand in glove. O lovely land where the shamrock grows, allow me, ladies, to blow my nose, to show you for strictures I don't care a button. I printed the poems of Mountainy Mutton. And a play he wrote, you've read it, I'm sure, and a play of the Word and Holy Paul, where they talk of bastard, bugger, and whore, and a play on the Word and Holy Paul, and some woman's legs, that I can't recall, written by Moore, a genuine gent that lives on in his property's 10%. I printed mystical books in dozens. I printed the Table of the Cousins. Though asking for your pardon, as for the verse, 'twould give you heartburn on your arse. I printed folklore from north and south by Gregory of the Golden Mouth. I printed poets, sad, silly, and solemn. I printed the great I printed Patrick, what do you call him? I printed the great John Millicent Synge, who soars above on an angel's wing, and the playboy shift that he pinched as swag from Maunsel's manager travelling bag. And I draw a line at that bloody fellow that was over here dressed in Austrian yellow, spouting Italian by the hour to O'Leary Curtis and John Wise Power, and writing of Dublin, dirty and dear, in a manner no blackamoor printer could bear. Shite and onions, do you think I'll print the name of the Wellington Monument, Sydney Parade and Sandymount Tram, Downs Cake Shop and Williams Jam? I'm damned if I do. I'm damned to blazes. Talk about Irish names of places. It's a wonder to me upon my soul he forgot to mention Curly's Hole. No, ladies, my press shall have no share in so gross a libel on stepmother's Erin. I pity the poor, and that's why I took a red-headed Scotchman to keep my book. Poor sister Scotland, her doom is fell. She can't find any more Stuarts to sell. My conscience is fine as Chinese silk. My heart is soft as buttermilk. Column can tell you I made a rebate of £100 on the estimate I gave him for his Irish Review. I love my country, by herrings I do. I wish you could see what tears I weep when I think of the emigrant train and ship. That's why I publish far and wide my quite illegible railway guide. In the porch of my printing institute, the poor and deserving prostitute plays every night at catch as can with a tight-breeched British artilleryman. And the foreigner learns the gift of the gab from the drunken draggle-tail Dublin drab. Who was it said, resist not evil? I'll burn that book, so help me devil. I'll sing a psalm as I watch it burn, and the ashes I'll keep in a one-handled urn. I'll do penance with farts and groans, kneeling upon my marrow bones, till the very next Lent I will unbear my penitent buttocks to the air, and sobbing beside my printing press, my awful sin I will confess. My Irish foreman from Bannockburn shall dip his hand in the urn, and sign criss-cross with reverent thumb, memento homo, on my bum. So it's a humorous poem, mock heroic in places. So Joyce was decidedly hacked off, but this printer wouldn't print Dubliners after all. So it's written in the persona of the printer, George Roberts, who was having a row with. So earth and heaven trembled. He's inverted the usual way. We usually say heaven and earth. So why are they quaking? Something's gone wrong. Because the black and sinister arts of an Irish writer in foreign parts. That's James Joyce, because he's abroad. He moved abroad when he was 20 and always lived abroad, only returned to Ireland a couple of times. Who sent me a book 10 years ago, because Joyce published very few books, Finnegan's Wake, Dubliners, Ulysses, but just made sure that they were absolutely word perfect, worked them and reworked them for decades, and one play, Exiles, because of course he was abroad. So he goes on about having read it forwards and backwards 100 times or so. I printed it all to the very last word. I'm not sure if he printed and then pulped it. Well, maybe. But by the mercy of the Lord, the darkness of my mind was rent. Rent meaning torn in this case, to rend. So it's a past tense. I saw the writer's foul intent, and I owe duty to Ireland, because Dubliners is very scabrous, scatological, and shows the seamier side of Dublin life. Look at the poem Araby, for example, the story Araby, and reflects genuine Dublinese, the local patois, the use of colourful swearing. So James Joyce also trying to reflect the confusion, the uncertainty, the background noise of ordinary life and conversation. People don't speak grammatically or in perfect lucidity. So he was capable of composing things in crystalline prose. He wanted to show that ordinary life isn't like that, it's much untidier. And in a spirit of Irish fun, betrayed her leaders one by one. So, right, well, I'm not sure which ones he's talking about being betrayed, but he mentions Parnell specifically a bit after that. Is it letting down Daniel O'Connell, perhaps? Is it Theobald Wolfe Tone? He wasn't really a leader of Ireland. He had some backing from a movement. He was caught and he was betrayed. Okay, it was an Irish judge sentenced him to death. Wolfe Tone was a guy who topped himself. Mentioned Parnell, the leader of the Home Rule Party, got into this terrible row over his extramarital affair with Catherine O'Shea. But won't go into that. And the Home Rule movement, the nationalist movement, that split into two groups: Parnellites, anti-Parnellites, and Joyce's family was split by this. If you read A Portrait of the Artist as a Young Man, which is very autobiographical, he recalls as a small child hearing a blazing row in his family over which side to take, my dead king and the auntie called Dante, because auntie and Dante would rhyme in Irish ordinary speech. Tear out his eyes, apologise, and so forth. 'Twas Irish humour, wet and dry, flung quicklime in Parnell's eye. Nobody actually put quicklime in his eye, but I think we might have thrown it, and that will rot skin, whether you're living or dead. They often put it on dead bodies and they want to completely destroy them, but only works when dry. And notice the use of the Elizabethan twas rather than it was. And in conversational Hiberno English, people to this day sometimes say twas rather than it was. The leaky barge of the Bishop of Rome, that's the Pope. Is he saying that the Catholic Church is feeble? Well, it was a very healthy state when he published about 1912, and everyone knew the Pope can't belch without consent of Billy Walsh. He's referring to His Eminence, the Archbishop of Dublin, Billy Welch. I think it was Welch, or was it Walsh? It was Walsh. He's written Walsh to half rhyme with Belch. So as though he's more important than the Pope, the Catholic Archbishop of Dublin, of course. I know there's a Protestant one too, but that's not the one we're alluding to here. A while of my first and only love, where Christ and Caesar are all hand in glove, and that one has stayed with me since I was 16. That couplet and the previous one about the Pope can't can't belch without consent of Billy Walsh, but and considered frightfully disrespectful to allude to the Supreme Pontiff being eructatious. Because he was just really exalted as though they were otherworldly, a godlike figure for many Catholics at the time. A lovely land where the shamrock grows, allow me ladies below my nose. So there are shamrocks there, but he's speaking in these rhapsodic terms of Ireland, and then interrupts us, brings it back down to earth with talking of these bodily functions. So he is cocking a snook at misty-eyed patriotism. To show you for strictures I don't care a button, I printed the poems of Mountainy Mutton. I'm not specifically sure what that is. We do talk about mountainy men as in rebels who are shadowy figures hiding out the mountains, or is it people who are really from the mountains, as in the poor? Is he mocking provincialism? Just possibly. The play you wrote, I'm sure you've read it. They talk of bastard, bugger and whore, so going on about these swear words he's trying to cut out. And the play on the word and Holy Paul, word with a capital W, I think with the word of the Lord or something, and Holy Paul, is that Saint Paul? I'm not sure, but you certainly couldn't blaspheme anything that expressed anything less than reverence towards Mother Church was unacceptable in those days. Blasphemy was a crime, of course, in Ireland at the time. I'm not quite sure when we repealed that law. Brought a new one in, bizarrely, about 10 years ago, and some woman's legs I can't recall, so we can't be writing about female body parts. Written by Moore, a genuine gent. Obviously that's Thomas More, the Irish poet, not Thomas More, the English judge and saint, that lives in his property to 10%. He's making some money. He was a man of property, was he? Was quite wealthy towards the end, Thomas More. I printed the table of cousins, though, asking your pardon for the verse. Would give you heartburn on your ass, as in, it's so boring, you have to sit down for so long. I printed Folklore from North and South by Gregory of the Golden Mouth. I'm not sure who he is. Oh, some guy with the surname Gregory. His name escapes me. I printed poets Sad, Silly and Solemn. I printed Patrick, What Do You Call Him? I'm not sure who that is. I printed the great John Millicent Synge. It's Millington Synge. So perhaps this character is getting it wrong to show he's an ignoramus who soars above on an angel's wing. Well, he died by this stage, John Millington Synge. In the Playboy shift as he pinched the swag, because Playboy the Western World was his highly contentious play, which came out in Dublin just after the 20th century. And I think he's the one who invented the word Playboy, not in the sense of the Hugh Hefner publication. But there was mentioned the word shift, which is a female undergarment, which was like a petticoat or something. The Playboy riots, the audience were mortally offended. They felt it was immoral because these were very Victorian and judgmental times. And I draw the line to that bloody fellow that was over here dressed in Austrian yellow. Is he talking about James Joyce, who was a bit of a snappy dresser and come back from Trieste, which was in the Austro-Hungarian Empire? Sprouting Italian by the hour, that'd be Joyce, all right, who mastered Italian and gave us both his children Italian names. Because Trieste, though it was part of Austro-Hungary, it had an ethnic Italian majority. To O'Leary Curtis and John Wyse Power, father of Jenny Wyse Power, notable Dublin political and literary figures, and writing of Dublin dirty and dear in a manner no blackamoor printer could bear. That blackamoor was a sort of appropriate term for a black person. Not sure why he's calling him that. Shite and onions, and James Joyce uses this expression a lot, shite and onions. Do you think I'll print the name of the Wellington Monument? Okay, that's to his deathless fame there in Phoenix Park. I recall seeing it etched on the pedestal, his deathless fame, as in the Duke of Wellington, one of Ireland's most magnificent soldiers. Sydney Parade and Sandymount Tram, these are real places. So he lived in a tower in Sandymount. We had trams in Dublin in those days, got rid of them in the 50s, back in 2004. So if you look into Portrait of the Artist's Young Man, he has himself living in that tower for a while. Downs Cake Shop and Williams Jam, the ordinary things there. I'm down to Blazes. Blazes was a popular Dublin expression. I'm not sure if they still use it, don't think so. I'll talk about Irish names of places. I forgot to mention Curly's Hole. I don't know what that is. Curly is a surname in this case. Hole, is he talking about his anus, or is there actually a place probably a double entendre. So gross and liable on stepmother Aaron. So whenever Aaron being Ireland, by the way, shouldn't be used as a girl's name. So he won't allow anything which is less than respectful about Holy Ireland. A red-headed Scotchman keeps my book, as in an accountant. I'm not sure why he's saying that. I'm supposed to say Scotsman. Scotch is sometimes intended to be demeaning. Poor sister Scotland, her doom is fell, okay, which is like sort of absolutely dreadful. She can't have any more Stuarts to sell, as in the Stuart dynasty, betraying them. That's what he's hinting at. My conscience is fine as Chinese silk, so very fine indeed. It's probably say he doesn't have any. My heart is soft as buttermilk. So he's ridiculing this guy, his supposed ethical purity. Colm can tell you I made rebate of £100 on the estimate, so he's making a handsome profit. Okay, I wish you could see the tears I weep when I think of the emigrant train and ship. So he's going on to suggest this chap is very sad to see people are leaving Ireland for economic reasons. Again, James Joyce is skewering this excessively sentimental, stereotyped love for Ireland. He's sneers at that, thinks it's just overdone and false, because he seemed to dislike nationalism of all kinds, even though Dublin was his muse. Lived with Nora Barnacle, his portable Ireland, though she was from Galway. Nora Barnacle, she'll stick to you, with the name Barnacle, so his mother said. Okay, mentioning a poor and deserving prostitute that plays every night at Catch As You Can with a tight-breeched British artilleryman. So there were open brothels in Dublin well into the 1920s. A foreigner learns a gift of the gab from a drunken, draggle-tailed Dublin drab. So drab being a prostitute as well, so picking up their delightful street slang. Who was it said, resist not evil? I don't know. I'll burn that book, so help me the devil. So he wants to burn the book. He thinks it's wicked. I'll sing a psalm as I watch it burn. So people being excessively moralistic, we can't have a filthy book. And so for Joyce's books were banned in the Republic of Ireland for decades after they were published. I'll do penance with farts and groans. So you're meant to pay off your sins with things, but you can't do it with flatulence. So again, he's lampooning the idea of doing penance, because Joyce was a cradle Catholic, but loathed the Catholic Church. Kneeling upon my marrow bones, as on your knee. I'm not sure why he's mentioning the marrow of the bones. I know marrow bones are things you buy to feed to your dog. And the very next Lent I will unbear, as in Lent that fast leading up to Easter, my penitent buttocks to the air. So pulling a moonie is not much of a penance. So he's showing how laughable the whole idea is. And sobbing beside my printing press, my awful sin I will confess. My Irish form from Bannockburn is in 1314, that June victory of the Scots against the English and us and some of the Welsh. An Irishman from Bannockburn, does that suggest an Irishman who takes the side of the English or something? Shall dip my right hand into the urn, so that box where you keep ashes, possibly of a cremated person, and sign crisscross with reverent thumb, like this, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. So it's a reference to Ash Wednesday, and again he's sending up Catholicism. Memento homo on my bum. I remember man, okay, on my bum. So because I'm not sure why there's memento mori, remember that you will die. So that is Gas from a Burner and my very amateurish interpretation thereof. Toodaloo.